Welcome to the Run Strong podcast, episode number 4. If you're listening in on the InnerFight show, episode number 573, I believe. The last one was 571. Thursdays will be 572. We are now on 573. So we are still taking over the InnerFight podcast. Rob Jones, you're still here?
I'm still here.
They're still letting us do this, mate. I'm not sure how.
I'm not gone on holiday again yet, so I'm all good. I'm here.
Yeah, not too much holidays left for you to book, I don't think. But you have got some dates for us, mate. So why don't we tick those off the list first?
Yeah, we've had a lot of interest from the run camp at the weekend, where me and Marcus took some guys up to the Hadja Mountain. So I just thought I'd share the other camp dates that we have available for anybody really that wants to come and join us.
I think the grilled scorpion is what hooked people in.
Grilled scorpion, and there was a lot of elevation in the mountains. So we have some more dates for you if you want to get your diaries out and ready to plan. 9th and 10th of January, we'll be taking some people into the desert for a sand camp. The same again on the 31st of January and the 1st of February. We'll be hitting Al Qudra in the desert for some sand and some hills there. 27th, 28th, 29th of February, back in the sand. And then the 5th, 6th, 7th of March, we'll be in the mountains.
It's a long way away, mate.
That's a long way away, but people like to plan these things.
Yeah, and rightly so, because these camps you need preparation for them. They're not just, they're almost events in themselves, these sort of camps, aren't they?
Yeah, and people love them. Absolutely love them. At the weekend, we had some guys that had never run before. They came out, they hiked up the mountain, had a chat at the top, and hiked back down. So you don't need to be a runner. You can just come get involved, enjoy the social element, drink some water, have a good time.
Have a great time.
Yeah.
Really. Have a great time.
And the best bit, they're free.
The sand camps, yeah, that is true. They're completely free. The sand camps up at Al Qudra.
Yeah.
Imagine Al Qudra was never built. Well, how would Dubai look now? It would be interesting, wouldn't it?
What do you mean? It's sand dunes.
It's sand dunes, but you go there because that's where, like, Zad's is. That's where you park. That's where the track is. You always feel like you're never lost because the track's always there.
And actually, the run camp will be in the middle of that square. So we do say if you do get lost, you just run in one direction. You'll find some cyclists.
That's what I'm saying. Imagine no Al Qudra.
Some of the camps, though, we go a little bit off-road. So we won't be quite as near the cycle track as you think.
Yes.
They're good, though.
You go see some of the oryx.
So the oryxes, not orinks.
I call them oryxes.
Oh, God.
Someone said to me the other day, there's loads of deer in Al Qudra.
You need
like, oh, yeah, the oryx deer.
Anyway, get involved with some of these camps. They're completely free. You can drop me an email, rj@innerfight.com. I'll send you some more details. Maybe not now for January, but send me an email near the time, and I'll let you know what's going on.
Yeah. Also, this week, Project DXB kicked off.
Yes.
Which is really, I love it. It's such a special time of the year for us. The energy that you feel starting, well, this year, 24 runners off on an incredible 12 weeks.
It's going to be mayhem.
And these guys are up for it.
Oh, yeah.
They're really up for it.
The emails and the stuff that they've been sending us already, they are fired up.
It's no joke this year.
No, we're going to have some really good times, I think, and some really good stories from this. So, yeah, stay peeled on the Instagram and see what these guys start to achieve. It's going to be...
Yeah. And we're going to have group runs there. So if you want to come and join us on any of our group runs, we'll make sure we put on our social which ones you can come to. Always Track Tuesday, you can always come along and run with us there. But we're going to do some longer weekend runs, particularly with our Project DXB guys, which it's no problem if you want to come along and say hello and have a run with us, then more than welcome.
Yeah, we'll get some breakfast afterwards, maybe have a little swim, relax.
Yeah, buy us breakfast. It's all good.
That's the only reason we do this, so we can eat for free.
We eat for free, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And eat, right? That's why we run the miles.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. So today's show is our questions show.
We've had some good questions in actually this week. Some really good questions. Some stuff that you can get super geeky on. So I'm quite excited to see what you say for some of these.
Yeah. I first of all have a question for you though.
Oh.
David Goggins.
David Goggins.
You love him.
I do love him.
I know of him.
You know of him.
But so you told me something interesting earlier.
What's your question?
My question is like, is this man full human or is he just robot?
He's definitely wired completely differently to most humans, I would say. Yeah. So for those who don't know, David Goggins, he's an ex-military man in the US. He's really big on social media for mindset. He's big into his ultra running. If you read the book Living with a SEAL by Jesse
David Attenborough.
Jesse Itzler.
Oh, yeah.
Jesse Itzler. He basically found this guy, David Goggins, at one of the races. He did an ultra marathon, and he just had a chair and a packet of crackers and some water. He tore his hamstring during that race, just strapped it up with tape and finished the race because he wanted to qualify for the Badwater across the Death Valley.
Yes.
Anyway, so he's just run a race at the weekend, the Moab 240. He got lost 7 miles in the wrong direction, which is, 5 miles is 8K, so we're talking like 10 kilometers in the wrong direction. Ran back the 10 kilometers to find the track again. Eventually, because of the altitude, he got pulled from the race and sent to hospital. He then decided to check himself out of hospital. He was disqualified from the race. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Checked himself out of hospital, took himself back to where he got disqualified and where he got pulled from the race, and then just finished the race himself for fun.
Wow.
Go check out his social media. He's very big on Instagram. He's quite inspirational. Lots of our endurance guys like to read about him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
some of the stuff that he does will make your eyes bleed.
If you need some inspiration this week, go and find David Goggins.
Go find Goggins.
I think I have heard him on a podcast, on Joe Rogan's podcast, actually. But I don't know, mate. Do you follow those guys? Do you follow them for inspiration?
I follow a few, not so much for inspiration, just to see what the rest of the world is up to and see the crazy stuff that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would it inspire me? I don't know. I think I can find more inspirational people closer to home that I know personally.
Yeah.
That I'd look up to more so than these guys sort of that are off in the distance. You know, I can speak to guys here that are really inspirational. I can find out exactly what they're doing, how they do it, speak to them personally as opposed to just watching them on social media. It can be very warped at times.
Yeah.
So, but he is definitely something there that entices me.
Good. Right, let's get into some questions then.
Okay, shall I start with a question for you?
Go for
Actually,
it.
I'll read the question out. So this has come through Instagram. I can't pronounce the name, so I'm not even going to try. So the question is, do slow, now you can decide what slow is for yourself, but do slow runners need interval training? That's the question.
That's the question.
That's a really good question.
Well, yeah, and it's probably a very common asked one.
Yeah.
I would say.
Everyone can decide what you're in, so my slow is not necessarily the same slow as other people's, but maybe, assume that slow is maybe a new runner or someone that's just starting out. They maybe haven't run a marathon yet, let's say, or they want to get faster and faster, but they are self-proclaimed as slow.
Yeah. There could be an argument that new runners, all they need is interval training to begin with. You might say their first 3-4 week block. And intervals is very broad term. So it could be run-walk intervals.
Mm-hmm.
It could be run-rest intervals, so just doing nothing.
Let's actually, you know what, we should go back first and discuss. Maybe people don't actually know what intervals is, because intervals can take on quite a few different names.
Yeah, they can.
So what would you define an interval as?
An interval is a time period where you are given an allotted intensity of exercise.
So it could be also called tempo running or fartlek running or running fast.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. So
definitely.
A track session would be determined or defined as an interval session.
Yes.
But then you can also do longer intervals.
Yeah, exactly. You can do longer intervals. The opposite to intervals you'd call like long slow duration running.
Yeah, okay.
So where you're running without a change in pace or without a change in intensity within the session.
What's the longest interval you've ever done? In a training session?
Oh, mate, without thinking back hard. I've had some like hour blocks.
An hour interval session.
Hour interval blocks.
I was thinking about this. I think the longest that I had in my last training was a 5K interval.
Okay.
And then it was a recover and then you go again.
No, I have like 10K tempos and stuff like that. And yeah, I've had some long intervals.
There you go. So the intervals can be really short. They could be even just a few seconds, or they could be long.
Yeah.
Very long.
So do new runners need them? Well, going back to my original answer is I would argue that actually in certain cases it's all they need to start with. If you're going from nothing, then low intensity, like zone 1 training is going to be favorable for a beginner because it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So doing anything compared to nothing is going to give you a benefit.
Definitely.
But how much of that benefit of running, say, zone 1 only, like long, slow duration running, we're only working one aspect or maybe two aspects of actually running. So you're running biomechanics, you're working because you're running, and your low aerobic zones you're working.
Definitely, yeah.
But when we look at things that newer runners could do with having, which is like muscle recruitment, running economy, using different energy level systems, getting to learn what different paces feel like, none of that gets taken into account when you just go out and do easy zone 1 stuff, which is normally a beginner's run program. That's what it looks like. Do, 5K on Monday, then on Wednesday do 6, and then on the weekend do as long as you can in an hour, and then repeat, but with a 10% add-on each time.
So the only thing that's increasing there is the volume and in no way volume. Intensity.
Exactly. And when we look at getting our guys who, say if someone's coming into us really, really fresh or needs to start rebuilding again, we'll nearly always go with a run-walk interval approach, and then maybe a longer run on the weekend. And the reason for that is because we want them to be running not just at a long, slow pace, but also running at a pace that is going to give them a little bit of endorphin release. You want to feel good running again, not feel like you're absolutely slogging along and it's slow and oh my god, I got 20 minutes left or 30 minutes left and I hate running. It's like, okay, I've got 3 lots of 5-minute intervals. I can do this. Halfway through, you're thinking only 2.5 minutes left, and then I get to rest, and then I can recover and I can go again.
When you say the long, slow running, I just remember being at university. I just flash back in my head of just seeing the line of treadmills in the gym and people just running at
just
one
slogging
pace.
it out.
And they look so bored.
Mate, it's unreal.
It's
how
horrible.
They do that. Yeah, it is. It is horrible. And they're there because that's what the treadmill has told them. They'll have gone on the treadmill, program,
Flat
beginner, aerobic work.
That's
okay, off we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the old school was, right? Whereas we get new guys come down, they come to a track Tuesday, they see everyone else running, so psychologically it's a bit easier, and then they hit the endorphins of running.
And they come in their first week as well.
yeah, of course. Everyone can come along, and we adapt the session for everyone's needs.
Well, this is it. So the intervals, they're so individual. You can run your own pace, no matter what your pace is. We have fast guys, we have slow guys. They all do the same length of interval, but they do it at their own intensity.
Exactly.
So the pacing doesn't really matter. The length of interval will change depending on their speed, I suppose. But the stimulus is really the same for all athletes.
Exactly. And, the point of it is, well, are you building an aerobic base with interval training? Yes, if you're doing a correct amount of it and you're adding in your longer runs or longer recovery runs on the weekend or when you have the time for it, you're building a much more solid base than just going out and doing low intensity work.
That's it, because you get the aerobic benefit from the recovery period as well, and then you get obviously the benefit, the anaerobic benefit from the interval work if you're pushing hard enough. Yeah,
you get an enhanced EPOC, enhanced oxygen, post-exercise oxygen levels. Yeah, I think that's what it stands for.
Perfect.
So, we definitely recommend intervals for beginners. And if you are doing the Dubai Fitness Challenge and you are going around the city scanning the barcodes, the 30 different barcode locations, which I think 8 or 10 of them are running workouts, which we've designed, filmed, and have been lucky enough to be involved with, you will find that is purely interval training, and I think there is only one in there that's like run as much as you can within a 30-minute time block, which you may choose to cut up into intervals anyway.
And actually we did a run with Lululemon last Tuesday,
yeah,
and the session that I programmed for them was interval work.
Nice.
And they loved it. Well, actually they didn't love it. Quite a lot of them said it was really, really hard, but because they've never done it before, these are the guys that were going out and just running.
So did they turn up expecting just to have a long run?
I think so, yeah.
And you curveballed them.
A small shock to the system.
I think it's good.
That's very good. I suppose another thing to look at from this is the psychological aspect of this. So if you're a new runner or a self-proclaimed slow runner, quite a lot of these guys, they do have some big aspirational goals. So they might want to run a marathon or a half marathon or a 10K. And when they run this race, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Any running for a long period of time is going to be hard, especially if you're going to race hard. And if you're hitting those intervals at a hard pace, then you're getting exposure to what it's like to run hard.
Yeah.
And then, so obviously, you're going to develop that pain tolerance, be used to running at that speed. You'll know what it feels like on the heart, and then hopefully better prepared on race day.
Exactly. Actually, this reminds me, I had a question yesterday of a client. We were in the gym having a meeting, and he said this was in a cycling context, but we work with a number called FTP, functional threshold power, which is in theory, the power you can hold for an hour. And he said, Tom, why don't we look at what we want my power to be, and then why don't we train to that number? And I thought, I mean, I know why, but how do I get this back across to him, in a simple term to understand? So it's kind of like, well, I want to run a 10K in 40 minutes, so why aren't I doing all my training runs at 4 minutes per K? So I was like, yeah, that's we sort of know the theory behind it, why, but I was like, well, say you had 2 houses and you've only got 100 dirhams, and one house costs 100 dirhams and the other costs 50 dirhams, and you buy the house for 100 dirhams. Now you've got nothing left. So what if that house needs something doing to it? You need to go buy food, you need to do other things. You can't. You've spent all your money on this one house.
You got nothing.
You got nothing left.
Yeah.
So you buy the 50 dirham house. Now you got 50 dirhams to go and shop for it, do whatever you want for it, and so you've invested half your money in it. So you leave the other bits for recouping whatever you need to make that better. And I said it's similar within your week. If we work you towards, say, in this context, a pace. So if we say, okay, you're going to go run 40 minutes at 4 minutes per K, because that's what you want to run your 10K in. If that is your true threshold pace, which 10K pace would be, you're then absolutely screwed for the rest of the week. You need recovery time. You need time to get your body back to a place where it can train again, because you've gone at your hard effort. So you've got nothing left to put into the other sessions within your week. And this is where intervals really, really help. So if we say we're training for a 10K and you want to run that 10K in 40 minutes, so 4 minutes per K, okay, we're going to break this set down. We're going to do 10 by 3 minutes, so 30 minutes total at your 10K pace, which means you get great exposure to the pace you want to be running at. But we're going to give you recovery in between. Maybe we're going to give you a minute in between. And now we're letting you recover and then go again. And the whole total session, you only run 30 minutes at that 10K pace. And you can say to it, okay, I know what 4 minutes per K feels like now, but you haven't absolutely spent all your energy into that one session in your week. So now you can go back that session up with an aerobic session. And then the next day you might back it up with a recovery run. Then you have a rest, and then you can do that session again. You can make up the extra 10 minutes that you were going to run at that. And if you were running 4 minutes per K, you can make that up in another run. And you can actually get more time than you think you can running at your set goal pace than if you put it all into one session and just blow absolutely everything out there.
And the other way to look at that is you could actually run at a faster pace than your prescribed goal time. So you could be running those 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever minute intervals at 350 per K. So faster than your goal time, and then you're getting even more exposure to a faster pace. So when you do have to run at 4 minutes a K, you're backing off a bit and it seems a bit easier.
It feels a lot more manageable. That's what we would do with someone in more of a peak week. We get them running past goal pace, so the body is actually going to adapt to a much faster pace, so it knows when it has to run and hold a tempo pace, like you say. It's more achievable for it, and you have a bit of confidence in your head. Okay, I can do this, because running over threshold is a very good way to get yourself burnt out. So there's a lot of reasons to be wary of it, but there's also a lot of reasons to go beyond it and push yourself, which interval training really helps with.
Excellent. I think that's that question covered.
I hope so. I haven't got much more to say about it.
Okay, question 2. This one that you came up with. It was off the back of a Coach the Coach, or somebody spoke to you about this, off the back of Clarkie's Coach the Coach talked to us last week. And the question was just really simple. Is longer always better?
Well, yeah, this actually came from a different... I brought this question out from the original question, which was, if you haven't watched it, InnerFight Instagram page, Jamie Clark's Coach the Coach 2 weeks ago, all about, do you love your job?
Okay.
Which to us was kind of preaching to the choir, because we're all in a job we absolutely love and get to work in. And the question was, what if you love your job, but you don't like the people around you? I won't name who it was and get him in trouble. But it made me think, God, yeah, that's a really good question. And then I thought, because I had another client say to me, I love endurance, but I think I'm falling out of love with triathlon. I was like, yeah, okay. So I was like, what do you do when you love endurance, you love the endorphins, you love running, and most people get into a trap of they think longer is better or longer is harder, or here's my journey basically. Is
Well,
that I'm now an endurance athlete, and I'm going to go until I don't know. I can't run any longer.
It seems to be a natural progression that people start running and they maybe enter a 5K race or a 10K race, and they go to a half marathon, then a marathon, and then now an ultra or a longer ultra or a multi-stage ultra. And there's no ceiling, is there? You can do. We have one guy that's doing race of the spine in the UK, which is 480 kilometers. This race directors out there just have no limits.
No.
So you could go on forever.
Yeah. When do you break? Basically.
When do you break?
So I kind of thought, well, a nice way to say we could go through some things like, what are some benchmarks to achieve within endurance that people could maybe help and use them for themselves to think, okay, good, I don't have to build myself up to a 100K ultra. Like another one is people think, okay, I've done a marathon now. I think the next step is to do Ironman, and it's like, what, are you excited about it? Like, what?
Yeah.
Does it make sense to? Maybe not. Maybe it's the point is you go for a better time. You go for a better, different benchmark. So within a marathon context, let's start there. You've got the majors, which people like to go to around the world. They can be quite hard to get into. Usually you need like a ballot place or
a qualifying time,
exactly, things like that. So then you could look at, like, okay, you've run a marathon, but you've got the benchmarks: 4:30, 4, sub 4, sub 3.5, sub 3, sub 2.
Sub 2. Sub 2 is the new benchmark for marathons.
It's the new benchmarks. And if you're going maybe the other way, and I know we're saying this isn't about longer is better, but if you run a marathon, 50K would be the next step.
I would say so, yeah.
From there?
Lots of people I know now are thinking about 24-hour races because it's, a period of time.
Yeah.
And how far can you run in that time? And I suppose the step back from that is 12-hour races, and there's more and more of those on the calendar. I know for me, I've always put it into the context of my why. So why do I want to race? It's never normally about the race. It's more about the training and the build up to the race, because the race is ultimately 1 day or 2 days, or in my case sometimes 5 days.
Yeah.
But you're going to be training potentially 5, 6, 7 months for some of these events, and if you're not enjoying the training for that event or that race, then there's no point in even signing up for it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more about the process, and then the race is just part of that process. And for me, the natural progression, sometimes I go longer, sometimes I go shorter. It just depends really what I fancy at the time. So in the summer I did CCC. That was for me one of the bucket list races, because I would always wanted to race around Chamonix. It wasn't the longest race I've ever done in my life. It was one of the, let's say, medium races.
Yeah.
But it was more location and event and the camaraderie of the people and the vibe in the city, and location. It's just, for that, it's the training for that just had my skin tingling thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then because of this, I enjoyed the training all the way through. The race was just tagged on at the end. Same way I did an Ironman, because for me, I did the Ironman. I wanted to tick it off the list, and I didn't have quite the same excitement about the training. So I didn't enjoy getting up and going for the long cycles around the Kudra. I quite liked the running. I did minimal swimming, if I'm honest. But I just wasn't as committed to train for that Ironman because I hadn't figured out my why.
So that is kind of where we're at. Is like you're doing endurance, but almost the people around you is sort of the race. So it's like, okay, Rob, you like endurance, so therefore you must like Ironman. But like you just said, you didn't particularly like training for it.
No, I did it to tick it off.
To tick it off the list. So
I didn't even have a tri-bike. I was like, someone said, "Oh, you need to buy a tri-bike for this." So, well, I don't really want to spend the money on a tri-bike. I'll do it on my mountain bike, or not my mountain bike. Sorry, my road bike. Or you can put aero bars on. I didn't want to train with the aero bars because they're a bit uncomfortable. And I just wasn't really committed as much as I could have been to that whole process. So that's how I knew for me that was not necessarily longer is always better. I ticked that off.
Yeah. What year did you do that Ironman?
It must have been coming up to 3 now. It was 2017, I think. Summer of 2017.
2017. And did you think at the end, okay, I'll keep training a little bit more for triathlon and I might find the love for it? Or did you just say, nope, I need to find a different goal here now?
I don't think I went on my bike after that for next to 8 months.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't. I enjoyed the cycle. Do you know what? I enjoyed the cycling element in that we went to the mountains and we cycled in the mountains. We did some really, really cool cycles, but I didn't sit on a turbo and grind out the FTP. I didn't go train to specific FTPs at certain intervals or anything like that. I did for the running, not so much the bike. I'd just go get some distance, and the swims I just did once a week. So I was definitely not committed to that whole process.
Have you ever been entered into a race and then halfway through the training or something just think, okay, I'm not enjoying this. I need to either not do the race or change something to make me enjoy it?
I haven't personally, no, but I know people have.
Yeah. I haven't personally either. I think once my mind's set on getting something done, actually, yeah, there's one I didn't start, but it was from just not being ready point of view. I was carrying injuries and things like that, but I think that's something else people can be very aware of is, it's okay not to sign up for something and not enjoy the training for it. And then it comes down to a question of, do you just want to prove to yourself you can do it? Or have you done 5 before and now you're saying, oh, just not enjoying it this time, so I'm going to stop and reassess and find something else? Because at the end of the day, for most people, this is a hobby and you should enjoy your hobby.
Exactly, yeah. And like you say, we're going to spend a huge amount of time invested in training for this event X, whatever it is. You should enjoy the training and you should look forward to the race day.
Yeah.
Maybe that sometimes as well, where having someone else do the programming for you helps. I know for that Ironman I did the programming myself, and so I'd almost begrudge my programming. And I know exactly what was coming up, but do I fancy doing this? No, I'll do this instead. And it was just a bit laborious, but maybe having someone else to keep you accountable and to write, you can sit down and bounce ideas off someone and get someone to help you with preparing for something like that. Or even maybe to tell you, no, you're not ready, or maybe have a slightly different goal. Maybe that would help.
Yeah, I think there's too much positive benefits to endurance not to have it in your life, purely from a health standpoint. If we look at what endurance and stamina can build for someone, even just on an hour-long level in a week, I think there is too many. But I think too many put pressure on themselves to achieve events or races that, if you said to them, okay, actually, we're going to take the pressure away of this and just let you enjoy your training a little bit more, they'd be so relieved to have.
Definitely. I think about it as well. Lots of people these days, they like to have something to talk about, let's say. Yeah. So, the marathon, the Ironman, the ultra are all benchmarks that people love to chat around when they're standing at the water cooler. So, you've got to ask yourself, what are you training for? Is it for you? Or is it for the other people that you want to see you in the office? Yeah.
Well, talked a little bit about that today in Lloyd's Coach to Coach. Perception and persona.
Perception and persona.
Which I found very interesting, and it all based down to your ego.
So it's what was your perception of yourself?
Yeah.
And what's people's perception of you?
Exactly. And then how your ego deals with that.
Exactly, yeah.
And it is very interesting. And that could be the answer here is if you love your job but you don't like the people around you, or if you love endurance training but you don't like the association to racers or people around you, I guess. Is that do you need to be worried about it, basically? Because if you're confident in why you're doing your training, if you're confident why you're doing your job, and you know why you love your training or your job, then you shouldn't really mind what the people are around you, because don't worry about it. Don't deal with them. Ignore their bullshit. Ignore the events that you feel like are being pressured to do. And if you want to run long, go and run long. If you want to run a marathon, run a marathon. Like we were chatting today in our meeting, and I love it. You said to me, this guy asked me he wants to run a marathon on the weekend, so we're going to set it up and he's going to run a marathon.
Exactly.
There's going to be no entry. There's going to be no start time. There's going to be no start line, finish line. He just wants to go run a marathon.
He's going to get up and he's going to get it done, and he's going to feel fantastic after it. He literally, doing it is almost the perfect answer to this. He's running for himself.
For himself. I
love
love
no one
it.
Else. Absolutely no one else.
Yeah, because there's a lot of other idiots who will enter a marathon that you have to run with, and if you can't be bothered to deal with that, then you just go and run one on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
It's brilliant.
I might join him, actually.
Yeah, let's go run a marathon.
Friday, 6 a.m. beach track. There'll be a guy standing there about to start his first marathon with a load of guys behind him.
Yeah.
Come and join us.
Last year when Marcus was doing his marathons, which is a year ago now, which is nuts, isn't it?
30 marathons in 30 days he did.
I had
insane.
Come back from a race in Ibiza, which was horrendous race for me. I had stomach issues and all sorts, so I was in a really bad mood, and then the airline lost my bike. So I was meant to do another race locally here in Dubai, and the airline lost my bike. I was in a furious mood, and he just said, all right, well, come down on, I think it was a Friday, and just run a marathon with me. And in my head, one side of my head just suddenly went, you've done 0 marathon training. And then the other side just went, just go run a marathon, like, you'll be fine. But also in my bike bag was my shoes, my run shoes. So I literally landed, grabbed a new pair of run shoes, and within 12 hours later, I think I got about 4 or 5 hours sleep, and went down and did I think his 3rd or 4th marathon of that series. And it was just so nice. He just said, yeah, we've just gone and run a marathon, and purely for the sake of, obviously he's doing a challenge, but for me, I was just there to have a good time and run alongside him and getting bottles and things like that. And it just there's no pressure to it, and it was one of the best marathons I've ever ran.
Yeah. In terms of feeling,
having a good time, having a laugh. We actually ran it around the DIT course when it was on, the long
That's
DIT.
right, I remember that, yeah. So everyone else was racing, and you were just running a marathon.
We were just running a marathon on the bike course. And it just, there's 0 pressure to it. And I guess you guys get that a lot within your ultra camps, is there's no pressure there really to perform. It's just going and banking miles and doing endurance for the love of enduring.
Well, that was it. I remember actually we had one of the endurance camps. It was a 12-hour AMRAP, so as many times as you can up and down the mountain. And there's one guy, I won't name him, but I'm sure we could all guess who he was. Was racing the first lap. So we had to say, look, why you rate? It's 12 hours. There's going to be no, if you win the first lap, you've still got X amount of hours to go.
Yeah.
You can't beat the clock. So just relax, enjoy it, chat to people, have a good time. It's going to hurt later on for sure. There's no way around that. But just try and enjoy the whole process. And once he had that flick of the switch in his mind, that it wasn't a race, it was there just to expose himself to a long period of time running, he had a much better time. Yeah.
So if you feel like you love endurance but you're not sure where to go next, or you feel like what you are doing you're not enjoying it as much, which we might say is the people around you, but don't take that into too much, think more outside of the box in that term. Figure out, put down your whys, put down why you do endurance, what benefits you've had from it, and think of something up that you can move forward with and get more from those perspectives of running or endurance.
And if you're struggling for ideas, we have plenty
of ideas for you.
Long, short, it doesn't matter. We've
Yeah.
got loads of cool things we can tell you what to do or how to do or when to do.
Good. So that question definitely took an interesting context to it, but I thought it was a really good one when it was asked.
I like that question.
And it made me go off. My mind went straight off to this thought anyway that I thought would be good to chat through with you.
Okay, last question. This is a good question because it's a question I think that would apply to lots of people out here. That again, it maybe applies to the newer runners, but again, the more elite runners that like to go really fast. So the question is, how much should I be training during a weekly block for 5/10K races?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one because I suppose, let's say you want to train for a 5 kilometer race and you go out for a 30-minute run. You might hit your 5 kilometers and your race is only that long, so you might think, oh, actually, I've done enough training. But you're not going to adapt and you're not going to make the changes that you want to run a 5K well for that time period.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's 2 ways we can look at this. We can look at this from the beginner standpoint, and we can look at this from a more elite standpoint.
Okay. If you want to be fast, the evidence is pretty clear. You need to have basically the more base training you can get within your week, that correlates with performance basically. So if you think that people who run a fast 5K just go out and run fast all the time around threshold, it's really, really not the case.
They still need an aerobic base. They still need some
number one thing they need. And normally they've built that over years and years and years. But what the studies show is if you get someone constantly pushing at threshold, their performance will actually deteriorate.
That's because of the recovery time and the fact they're just going to burn out over time, aren't they? You can't run at threshold every day or every other day for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end.
No, you will either get injured or burnt out or mentally just gone. So that is, if you're purely doing threshold or you're purely doing like what we call in the middle zone, so like zone 3 work, and then what you tend to find with zone 3 work is you get good endorphins and then you end up pushing up to threshold anyway. And we see this with a lot of like group runners. So definitely not going to call any of the guys out here, but group runs that get together on weekends or in the weekday and off they go. And the idea is, okay, today's an aerobic run, and then someone sets off and they're like, well, I am at my aerobic pace, and someone goes, oh, well, he's not beating me, so I'm going to go up there with him. And then it becomes a bit of a, okay, well now zone 2, it's only 5 beats over zone 2, and now I'm into zone 3, and then the people behind are going, I'm not good enough. They try and run to catch up, and then they burn out. And you just see, you look at their training, and it's just this lovely zone 3, middle of the road training plan that has so many poor side effects to it that I could go on for days about, but I won't. So the best option that you can have basically is a polarized training plan, which means you have 1 week very easy. The next week is going to be more aerobic focus. You might do strength aerobic depending on what time of the season you're in. You might do so strength aerobic would be like your hill work. It would be running on inclines, running back-to-back intervals with short rests, but not letting your heart rate spike up too much, finishing each session feeling like you can always do more. Then the next week, you might add in a little bit more of this tempo zone 3 that we've just talked about. So learning to run at paces that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but not too much. You still have a nice low intensity zone around it. And then your peak week is where you've got your race. So you're only running at your sort of race paces.
Jumping into that, the running at an uncomfortable pace. I think lots more people definitely need to get in tune with what running at an uncomfortable pace is versus running at an easy pace.
Yeah.
What I say to some of my guys is if you're running at an aerobic pace, you should be conversational.
Yeah.
And you should be able to perhaps, if you can, recite the alphabet in one breath.
Oh, wow.
So if you can do that in one breath, then you know that your pace is slow enough that it's aerobic.
Alphabet.
The whole try it, A, B, C, D, F, G.
I can't even remember it.
So if you can't do it, then you probably need to back off the pace a bit. It's just for the guys that maybe aren't in tune with their heart rate quite as much as the other guys, or they don't want to necessarily look at the watch and get the numbers. It's really sort of a quick benchmark. Can you have a conversation with somebody beside you and it's not out of breath versus
Yep.
the group running.
Glad I got that in my ears.
Sorry.
Headphones on. Yeah, I agree. And the biggest thing to remember is anytime you're running beyond 6, 7, 8 minutes, you're doing aerobic work. You're using predominantly slow twitch type 1 fibers. So the majority of your training needs to be that lower level aerobic, building those aerobic fibers, building the body's ability to utilize fat as fuel, using oxygen to burn, because when we're burning glycogen, it's a lot more costly than burning aerobic oxygen as fuel. And it's not that you're burning one or the other, it's that you're burning within ratios. And what a lot of people forget is the more aerobically fit you get, the better capacity you have to store glycogen, which is the fast fuel. So doing that training actually helps you for the faster stuff because you can store more of the fast fuel. Whereas if you're not aerobically built or haven't got an aerobic base as much, you will just go out and use your fast fuel up for any of the running that you do. And then when it is time to go fast and really hurt, you won't have that there. You won't be able to do it.
So what sort of volume, in terms of, let's say, kilometers, would you expect a new 5K runner to have in a weekly training program, roughly?
Roughly, we'd be looking probably anywhere, I'd say lowest amount would be 15 Ks a week, and building up to, on your big weeks, anywhere up 30 plus. I mean, if you look at the top 5Ks in the world, they're doing massive load, massive weeks at times. And you might think, why the hell does a 5K need to run 80, 90, 100K weeks? Well, it's purely so that when they hit the time where they need to go faster, they have the chassis, the foundations in order to load their body up with extreme fatigue, which only comes through having a big aerobic base.
It's like, I suppose that the gym equivalent of this would be, trying to hit a one rep max lift. You wouldn't just train once a week for a 1 rep max, or you wouldn't train low volume for 1 rep max. You build up the foundations and you go week on week on week, and you get a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, and then you build to this one big lift.
And you do your accessory work.
Exactly. You do everything around. So say a squat, you do loads of single leg stuff, you do deadlifts, you do all sorts.
Yeah. There's no point in having, a massive ability to suffer at lactate threshold, but then your ankles or your knees, hips, whatever, can't sustain the time that you're going to spend at lactate threshold. So that's where, again, low aerobic running comes in, as you're constantly doing small trauma that your body can recover from, adapt from, get better at, so that when you do go out and want to increase your mileage or want to push harder, you want to put more force into the floor, you're able to take it on.
I throw into that some plyometric work as well, and some...
for advanced, yes. Yeah. or jump on the Run Strong, Run Strong, not podcast. You should jump on the Run Strong podcast, but the Run Strong strength conditioning program, which we
buggered up
built
that segue, didn't you?
for runners. Terrible segue admin by me there. But and if you do look at that plan, I don't add plyometrics into it until like month 3. Month 1 and 2 are around base.
I did a good bunch of that getting ready for CCC, and my legs felt great. My heel obviously didn't, but everything lower leg was spot on for that race.
Yeah.
And I started right at month 1. I started at the beginner.
Everyone should, and everyone says it's so easy. I'm like, yeah, it should be.
Exactly.
It should be easy.
Yeah, it should be easy.
It's like zone 1.
You're building everything up.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. That's a good way to finish this show. I think actually people said, why is it called the Run Strong podcast? Well, it has come off the back of building the Run Strong program, which we want people to obviously go and get and utilize. But also that point of that program was to make running accessible to everybody and make sure everyone has the foundations to be able to go and run. Similar to this podcast, we want to bring running to people, we want to motivate people, inspire people, and let them go out and run and maybe have something to listen to while running. So that's why it's called the Run Strong podcast.
Definitely.
As well as the Run Strong program.
Excellent. So next week we are back again with a topic show.
Yes.
Do we know what the topic is?
I've had a few thoughts.
We'll keep that secret. And obviously there's some really good questions from everyone today, guys. So thank you very much for the questions. If you want to send us some more questions, email rj@innerfight.com, tw@innerfight.com, endurance@innerfight.com, or flick us a message over on Instagram, if_endurance. Lovely.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
See you later.